So we're going to be talking about sort of two things today, or the opportunity is there to talk about them. First, what will be pointed to is that this is the formless, like what's happening, the appearance, everything that's being registered or not being registered, is the formless being form. So it's a paradox. This appearance is and isn't. What's being pointed to there is that this is the absolute. This is the infinite appearing finite. And just to be very clear, it's not the formless becoming form or the infinite becoming finite. It's unbelievably and unimaginably and even beyond conception, it's the same thing. So in that sense, it's not actually moving. There's nothing actually happening. It's full. It's complete. It's whole. It's perfection, not in the conceptual or experiential way that the me would want or the individual would want to understand it or have it for itself, but it's perfection. It's perfect. It doesn't need anything. Within that perfection, there arises the experience, the me, that has an experience of being real. So it takes the is and isn't bit and only focuses on, there's somebody who wants to come in, focuses on or experiences the is bit, I am real. That experience of reality is the experience of separation. I'm here, everything else is outside of me, happening to me. It's literally like being cast out of heaven. The world, the appearance is no longer perfect as it is. I understand and know the world, and I am on the search for that perfection which seems to have been lost. Now, to be clear, that experience I am is perfection. Is absolute. There's nothing else. There's still nothing happening. But the arising of that experience of I am creates a need, which is a part of its story, which says that I will in the future find what I feel is missing. And that seeking energy hides the perfection that this is already. That experience that I'm going to find something, that experience that I am real, which is on a journey for a better experience, that entire experience, the entire thing, is illusory. There is nothing happening. There never was anything happening, and nothing will ever happen. Everything that appears is emptiness. It's the formless appearing to be something moving. So the past is simply an appearance. It's this appearing as a past. There isn't a real past. The future is this appearing as a future. There isn't a real future. The something else that the individual looks for doesn't exist. It's nowhere to be found. It's looking for something real so that it can feel secure in its experience of itself. There isn't anything real. This entire appearance is real and unreal. And when I say entire appearance, the appearance at the moment is a room. That's what seems to be happening. If the individual is in this room, or their experience, then it'll be known. There'll be the experience, I know I'm sitting in the room, and I have a position in this room, and I know where it is. When there's no one left, there's just rooming, peopling, speaking, hearing. No, but there's no position for that. There's no knowing for that. That's just what's happening. When that experience I am falls away or stops happening, one of the most poignant parts of that is the recognition that it never happened. that there never was a position separate from any other. The recognition is that every apparent position is everything. So the me will look at a hand and go, that hand is a part of an arm, which is a part of a body, which belongs to somebody. When there's nobody left, that's everything, or that's the infinite handing. That's the infinite peopling. That's the infinite sealinging. It got stumped. So, because there's already no one, that's just a suggestion. I'm not telling you anything. There's no answers. The individual is looking for something to happen. What's being suggested here is there's something that might stop happening that never happened. It just isn't anything. The individual has the experience that it needs to add something to itself for this appearance to be whole. There's nothing to add. There's nothing to add to yourself. There's nothing missing. So we can discuss that. Or anything else, actually.
Yeah, well, I've got a question already then. The only thing that isn't real is individual.
Yeah.
The rest is all real.
No. It's real and unreal.
So I can't, unfortunately I haven't got the vocabulary, but the experience that you have, like sitting on a chair,
Yeah.
Looking,
Yeah.
that is real.
A dream.
A dream.
Yeah. That's part of the individual's dream. The individual has the experience of being inside a body and takes responsibility for seeing, takes responsibility for feeling, and sitting on a chair.
Okay.
That's a position. That's the beginning of duality.
Okay.
And the suggestion from here, that's a dream. That's completely illusory. What we're talking about is the end of experience, which is the end of the experiencer.
Yeah. Once again, I get it, but I don't get it.
No, of course. Yeah.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Jim, when you operate, are you...
That's something that won't work. We're not getting anywhere with that. Nobody operates.
Mm-hmm.
There's simply what's happening.
Understood. There's no mind in that equation.
Don't know what you mean by mind. There's thinking.
Yeah.
I think what you're looking for is there's simply what's happening.
Right.
That's this.
Including...
It never changes. There's what's happening.
Including...
Everything.
Right.
Including the individual
Yeah.
that says there's what's happening and something else, which is hope.
Right. Yes. No.
That's also just what's happening.
Right.
That's the real problem for the individual because it doesn't leave it anywhere to be.
Right.
There's no position left for it to feel like it's separate or real. Because it's not.
Who are you speaking to?
No one's speaking.
So the thing looking out of my eyes...
Is a dream.
Yes. Yeah. It's intelligence, but it's a dream at the same time.
Well, I don't know what you mean by intelligence, but
Right.
it's just a dream. If there's something looking out of your eyes, it will see an object.
Right.
It's have an experience of a subject-object reality. When no one's looking out of your eyes, or when they're simply seeing,
Yeah.
all that's left, there's no objects anymore.
Right.
There's simply the infinite,
Yeah.
finiting.
Yeah.
But that's not anything anybody knows. It's not like it. The individual, it hears what's being said here, and it thinks that this has somehow found something, and has added it to itself, and therefore become whole. Because it only can understand getting something, looking for something else. That's just not the way it is.
Right.
It's already whole. There's the loss of the experience that there's something else that needs to happen.
Right. If anything, it seems as though it's a defense that seems to rise in turn, which
Well, the individual defends its position.
Yeah.
That's its whole life.
yeah.
It's going to die.
Yes.
It doesn't work out well for the
Yeah.
individual.
No, quite. No, quite.
Tries to avoid that.
Right.
So when people are laughing in the room like now, what
Yeah.
exactly is laughing there?
Who?
What is laughing?
What? Nothing.
Nothing. But they
That's all
don't
that's
really-
happening. Nothing.
Okay, but
That's
they don't
it.
understand why they're laughing.
There might be someone that comes in. Understanding is also nothing understanding.
I'll never get it.
No, that's you got it. If you could.
No, I'll never get it.
No. That's
It was
true.
worth a try.
Yeah. I'm literally saying that nobody gets this. I'm literally saying that this didn't get it. It's the whole drive, the need, the expectation that something needs to be gotten dies. And the interesting thing is that, or interesting, the profound thing is, what's revealed is there's only what's happening. And it's never been different. So there never was an individual which had the experience that something was really happening.
Okay. I can only believe you at the moment.
Yeah, well, don't believe me. You can't help it, but
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't.
I mean,
it's irrational,
yeah.
it's illogical.
It will never be, can't ever be experienced by the mind, ever. Ever.
I don't know what you mean by the mind, but
Right.
the individual, the contracted sense of here-ness, never gets it.
Yes.
It never gets what it's looking for.
Yeah. There's an internal experience of thinking, but it's
Now, thinking's not a problem.
right.
The I doesn't actually think. It's never had a thought. It's actually never done anything
Right.
as an actor. It's a reactor. So a thought arises and the individual takes responsibility for it, holds on to it
Right.
as a part of its story, trying to find what it's looking for. And that creates an energy, so it goes around in a circle, it goes back and forth with it. Because thinking isn't an issue.
Okay.
The issue is that there's somebody in there that thinks it matters.
Right.
It doesn't, there isn't.
It's interesting that you say the individual does something. And I struggle with the concept, the idea that something that isn't real can act. For me, only things that are real can act.
Yeah. Yeah, how can everything be nothing? No claims to logic here. We're describing a paradox.
Right.
I also say that the individual, when it stops happening, it's recognized it never happened. So how can something that never happened act? Or have any effect at all?
So 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 really what you're saying is there's an appearance of an individual acting.
Absolutely.
But actually there isn't.
There's nothing happening. This isn't, although the individual experiences itself and this is real, it's still not.
It's like a show.
It's a show. It's a light show. Somebody said yesterday. It's a light show. Light and sound show.
Thanks.
Well, regarding an action, though, I mean, if there's nothing happening, there's actually no action. Because action involves sort of change over time.
Yeah, there's apparent action.
Apparent action. You often say, though, the thing is just happening, but nothing's happening.
Exactly.
You say as well.
Yeah. It's only apparently happening. It only appears to happen. It only seems to happen. It's empty.
I guess, Jim, the individual, the sense of the individual can dampen or distort the, whatever you call it, the human being, the body mind, or whatever people say. It seems to have that impact on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
So in that sense, there's an impact.
In the story, of
Yeah.
course. In the story of something really happening, there's an apparent impact. Yeah.
You know when you say these meetings are dangerous?
Oh yeah.
And you say because it might be heard.
Yeah.
What hears?
What do you say? Nothing. It's not the individual. The individual can get concepts of this. They can understand what's happening, and then it'll apply it to its life or try to.
So nothing hears.
I mean, there's something beyond the individual. It's not the individual.
Hmm.
Something resonates
With what?
with what's being suggested.
Okay.
And it's not actually the words. I think the words are in some way, they're not irrelevant, but it's the energy. It's where they're coming from.
Okay. And what? So that would be the answer to my second question then, which is why does it disappear? When
What?
The individual.
Well, it doesn't.
Come to see you.
It doesn't.
Apparently kind of disappears.
Well, but see, if you ask why, then you're saying something really happens, and then there would be an answer. When the suggestion that it only apparently happens, then the why doesn't have any position anymore. There's no reality to it. It doesn't really happen. Nothing's really happening. This is nothing really not happening.
So when you say it's obvious that the individual never existed, it seemed the same way that you could say yesterday my travel didn't really happen.
Totally.
Okay.
Although it's different, because traveling did and didn't happen. So there's a memory of traveling. So there's an apparent traveling that brought the sitting here about. It's just not real. It's not real in the linear sense of the individual's experience of time as real. When the individual falls away, it really never happened. It wasn't ever real and not real. It didn't happen. It so didn't happen that when it's no longer there, it's almost impossible to remember. Like what the seeking energy was like, or what the movement was like, or why anybody would do it.
But yet it's got an impact on the appearance.
But only in the dream of the individual. Nothing is happening. In the dream of the individual, there seems to be a consequential process. Which is why people ask, what had happened, how did it happen here? Because the belief is that the end of the me is a process that seems to happen. There's no process. This isn't a process. This is already the wholeness, this appearance here.
Because the process would imply time, wouldn't it?
Real time.
Yeah.
There's apparent time. It's just not real.
But it's almost like
And why and process and development, all of that depends upon something really happening. And that's only a part of the dream of the individual. There's nothing really happening. This isn't really happening. So in a sense, you could sort of imagine it as really happening has a sort of a solidity. So the whole consequential experience builds up like a linear experience because this is solid. So it has a platform to rest on. When there's no one left, this isn't solid anymore. There's no platform from which to extend out, to have anything else be real. There's simply this happening. And that's just what appears. Has no solidity to it. It doesn't leave anything behind.
And that platform has never existed.
Exactly. It's a dream. There is no separation. The position that says, I know I'm here, is a dream. There's no knowing you're there.
Somehow that make and feel so real that...
But only to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the illusion, believing the illusion, or experiencing the illusion. Totally. Seems to be a self-confirming experience.
Are you interpreting experience differently? Like, I know that there's no...
Well, in a sense, you could say that no one's interpreting anymore. The individual interprets because it's on a journey, and it wants to put everything into it, sort of a file cabinet of experience that's called my life. This life makes sense, so I interpret everything and put it into box.
But you have presumably, don't you have a sense that you're sitting there?
No, of course not.
No sense of sitting there and us here?
No.
Okay.
So that's an experience.
Okay.
That's a subject-object experience. So there's no experience of someone speaking. There's just speaking happening.
I mean, does it? Because it feels like you would struggle to walk down the street without bumping into things.
That's because the individual thinks that it's actually doing something inside the body, that it has free will and choice, the levers and the buttons inside the body making things happen.
Yeah.
I had an experience when I was a kid, and we used to have these these little video games. They came in the big huge things. You had to put a quarter in to make it work. And I found one that was playing. Somebody had forgotten. And I went and I started to play it. And I was doing really, really well. And then someone came up and says, you know you're not playing, that's just the screen doing it. And it was like, oh, that's exactly the same thing. That's what the me is doing. It's in there going, oh, look at me, I'm doing really well. And I'm coming along going, you're not even there. An arcade, that's what they were called, arcades, yeah.
I have, again, this is probably illusion, but I have a strong sense that there's some kind of control going on. I don't mean actual control, but there's some kind of effort at control that's going on. And it happens in lots of, like my body to some extent keeps me homeostatic, the make sure the temperature doesn't go too high or too low. And lots of other forms of control, like, it's cold and I put a jumper on or a coat on. And that's happening. That's something to me that is happening. It's not necessarily centered in a self, but it is happening. And that for the closest I can kind of get to where you're at the moment is that controlling for that sort of selfless controlling appears to be a self sometimes, or a lot of the time, appears to be a me putting a coat on rather than it just happening. But it's still happening. There's still this controlling element that is making adjustments, constantly making adjustments for things like comfort, status, etc.
Yeah, it's not really happening.
Okay. Okay.
What you're doing is you're trying to understand what's being suggested here, to put it into context in a story that makes sense. And it doesn't.
Right.
I'm completely aware. This is nonsensical.
Okay.
No recourse to logic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
The suggestion is that's no thing appearing to be a body, talking to no thing appearing to be a body, and nobody's doing either one of it, and there's nothing else except this apparent happening, which isn't real. It's apparently real. That's all there is. And that apparent no thing, which is talking about control and happening and homeostasis, That's still just what is, or happening, appearing as that. Doesn't prove that anybody ever put on a jacket.
Jim, can I ask, I don't know how to say it there, is there sometimes apparent sensations in the body?
Yeah, well, everything is more, I don't know how to say this, there's more left than you would think of what is already happening. There's just no one left owning it.
Yeah. Because that is one of the things that makes up the sense of the personal somehow.
No, the personal arises out of contraction in the body, and then it takes responsibility for everything that's happening in hopes or effort to find what it feels that gets lost through the arising of itself. So it arises, experiences separation, and then tries to close that gap through adding something to itself. And there's just never enough to add.
Never enough to add.
It can never find enough to fill the gap.
Yeah.
No matter how much it gets, it's just never enough.
Yeah, that's quite different to sensations in the body.
Yeah.
It's a very different thing. So is there, can you ever say that there's a sense of, even though it's not a doer, a sense of the personal can arise?
Not when there's no one left.
But is there someone sometimes that though?
No, of course not.
No.
There never was anyone.
Mm.
It's not like we're looking for there to be no one. The suggestion is there isn't anyone. Already.
Sure.
But yet somehow the seeing there is different from the seeing there and there and
But
there.
there isn't there and there and there. That's a dream of understanding what it would be like if there wasn't anyone.
So there is just a seeing that is completely out of...
Well, you couldn't even say there's seeing. There's just simply what's happening. Seeing happened.
But seeing happens in a dog.
Apparently.
So that's going to be different from the seeing there, for example.
Why? I don't know there would be.
Or the seeing in a bird, which has an eye that has many facets.
But why would it be different though? You're trying to figure out what this is. You can't do it. Because you're saying that it would be different, meaning you can compare two different realities. There aren't two different realities. There's simply this apparent happening. That's this. So if there's a multifaceted eye, that would be what was happening. There's no one left trying to figure out what, maybe these are multifaceted eyes. Who knows? It's the end of knowing what's happening. There's no need anymore. Unless it comes to finding a good restaurant. then you have to go to Yelp and find out. Look at the reviews.
So Jim, is what you're suggesting that there is only this happening?
Absolutely.
And there's not another happening?
That's
like
right.
There and there
Yeah.
and there and
Yeah.
there? Absolutely not.
Yeah, what the individual will do though is it'll attach itself, it'll try to understand what's being said through thinking that the perception of this is what's being pointed to, and it's not. It's the real unrealness or the paradoxical nature of this everythingness which is empty. So it's not an identifiable this. The saying this or what's happening is pointing to an unidentifiable absoluteness.
Because when you say it's real and unreal, I tend to think, well, that then must be special.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's just a projection of the individual that feels itself special and that it needs. The individual has it. The experience of the individual is that it's in a really, really troublesome predicament that is trying to find a way out. And it being the center of the universe, its position in this predicament is quite important. It's big. You know, it's going to have to figure out how to solve famine, what to do with the Me Too movement, what to think about Brexit and Trump. It's a complicated world out there, and it all has to do with me. And so it feels like the solution has to fit that importance that it finds itself to be. So it thinks that if that does happen, it would have to be a really special happening that would fit to the expectation that it has. It doesn't. That's all not real. It's not important. It feels like it's that big, right? It's not even that big. It's not already.
It's literally like an idea of Brexit or something, or an idea of Me Too or something.
It's just that the idea of Brexit isn't important. Nothing depends upon it. It's simply what apparently happened. There's just what seems to be happening. There isn't a Brexit.
Not yet.
There's just the thought.
Jim, something you said a couple of minutes ago about perception and how I think you said the individual thinks that what you're saying is pointing to the perception of what's happening.
Yes.
And it's not.
No.
And something clicked there when you said that, in that when you're saying these things, I'm trying to reconcile it with the experience that's happening, as if from this position which doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's the trap.
Yeah.
The individual wants to know that wants to know unknowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the perception is actually completely irrelevant.
Well, everything's irrelevant because there's no relationship.
Funny, it feels like scrambling on the side of a
Yeah.
gravel pit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious that you say that, Jim, that you only speak it because you're asked to speak.
Yeah.
In terms of the articulation of this message in the non-existent past, would that be socially defined in the way it's expressed?
Don't know. Probably. Although I feel the way that it's being expressed now, I don't know how you'd get any closer.
No, I'm not suggesting that, but like 2,000 years ago, if you were sitting in a room, you'd probably be crucified, wouldn't you, if you said that?
Well, that's the reason I think why in Zen monasteries they had circular, it was, concentric. You have the novices out here and the more adepts in here, and then the secret in the center. I mean, there have been people over thousands of years talking about this, but you don't hear about it much. But it sounds exactly the same if you read people like Longchenpa or something.
In a sense, it's safer to articulate the message.
Seems to be. Nobody's crucified me yet. Although in Tot Ness there was one guy that wanted to.
With nails.
Was that?
With nails.
No, he was just using words.
There was a YouTube video a while ago where you said something about the subject of the subject of the subject and the kind of the logicality of it.
Yes.
And I had no idea. I just couldn't.
I was sort of describing what is it called? Self-inquiry points to. Self-inquiry, if you do it, it points to that there's no way, the individual is the claiming knower. I know I am. Who knows that? So knowing can only be a subject-object relationship. That's the reason the suggestion is there's no consciousness and no awareness, because there's no one to be aware and no one to be conscious. Mm-hmm. So what I was pointing out is that who is the subject that knows the subject? If knowing is a subject-object experience, then that never ends.
It's really logical.
Yeah, it never ends. It's just a mind game. It doesn't help.
So, Jim, even if one realizes that it's actually hopeless,
You can't.
the seeking will still continue
Well,
until it falls away. I suppose.
if there was a realization, as you call it, of the total hopelessness, that would be the end of the individual. There would be no more seeking. Who would seek if it were completely hopeless?
Well, there is a feeling of hopelessness. It's beginning
Yeah.
to arise. That
Yeah. Well, it is
will
hopeless.
continue.
It is hopeless. Hopelessness, true hopelessness,
Yeah.
is the unconditional freedom of everything. Because true hopelessness is the end of the experience that anything's being real.
Get it, but don't get it.
No. You never do, nobody does. I didn't. This isn't about me or this having gotten something. It really isn't. It's the loss of that drive, that need, that experience that there's a position here to defend.
Okay.
And presumably that loss isn't actually felt as a loss when it's over. Or
Loss is a loss. It depends. Yeah. When it's over, it's not an experience.
So there's no sense of loss.
No, there's no. Of course not. No. The sense of loss only arises with the individual.
No sadness for the lack of the story and the drama.
Oh,
and
God,
all that
no.
sort of stuff.
No. Who would care? It didn't happen. Nothing has been lost. The whole dream has nothing to. There's nothing to lose about it. It's already not happening. It's a whole dream of trying to find wholeness or completeness, and that's already what is.
So when there is that feeling of loss, what is it?
The experience that I am here and everything
So
is
it's-
outside of me, and I feel I've been cast out of paradise, and I need to then
So
go
it's
and
a
look
me
for it.
thing.
It's completely me thing, yeah. I mean, if that's what we're talking about, you know, if somebody, for me, if somebody would die or something, that might be a sense of loss. Like, if that's what, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by loss.
No, the way life could have changed. What has been lost along the way. You know,
No, none of that. That only happens if there's an experience that this needs to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Meaning there needs to be something done about it so that it can be the wholeness that you're looking for. It already is that.
Just feels like such a relaxation when
Yeah.
you fall asleep.
Yeah. Rita does that. We should just have beds.
Guru complex.
Huh?
Guru complex in there.
Oh. I don't get it.
walked in here so tense, and I just feel so relaxed now. Just listening. It's beautiful. I want to cry. Well, I won't. It's okay.
I don't need an answer, it's just...
There wouldn't be one. That's just what's happening.
Yeah, I know.
Why shouldn't there be shaking, and unconfident? Why not?
I'm not used to it.
Do you think you could compare subject-object reality to a language?
I thought more was coming. I mean, as far as understanding a language goes, you talk about building of sentences, that you need a subject and an object and an adverb.
But definitely language has that. Language is all about, you know, first person, second person,
Yeah.
all of that, and
Yeah.
accusative and
Yeah.
genitive and all of that. And definitely there's a bit, I think there's a bit of that in there. That there's, you know, language is more than just words coming out of a mouth. Language is a kind of, it's a whole psychic event.
Yeah.
And that this, and in a way it's the same with, sort of in a way it's the same with just pure subject-object reality. But it seems, it felt for a moment like that, like subject-object reality was a language that was being confused for for fact.
Right. Not really. For me, that would be too superficial for the experience of I am to compare it to a language. Because that experience I am, it's in a psychic way. Everything is already empty. Literally, it's empty. Not empty in the way that a physicist talks about it, but empty in the way that there's nothing behind it, there's nothing inside of it, there's not coming from anywhere. It's just simply this appearance. When the individual arises, it arises in the body as a reaction to the contracted energy. It arises in everything else at the same time. So it's actually quite profound in the apparent effect that it has on everything. So everything becomes real. So the reality that it experiences in things is the same reality that it experienced here. It's all the same sort of reality. And that to me is a more profound sort of apparent happening than a language.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think there's at the moment, I think language, in the way that I'm talking, can go very, very deep. And when you get to the bottom of language, you're literally talking about perspectives, and I think, do you know what I mean? So I think it just depends on how far you follow language down.
But that's still going to be an appearance. And we're talking about the unreality of appearance.
Okay.
It's almost like, you know, you can't feel language in a way.
Oh, of course you can. I know what he's talking about. Of course there is a response to language. There's a whole psychic energy like he's talking about.
Sure.
But that whole thing is still an appearance.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the fundamental nature of appearance. Is it real, which is the experience of the individual, or is it, as being suggested here, real and unreal, which is a paradox, can't be understood?
Yeah, I'm sort of seeing language as a functional thing.
Totally, which is more superficial than the questioning of the whole fundamental nature of the appearance.
Yeah.
Okay. There's nothing outside of the suggestion that the appearance is real and unreal. That's all encompassing. That's sort of the point of what's being suggested. There's no outside or inside. It's absolute. That's pretty big. Language fits in there.
So Jim, if everything is perfect, I suppose something like God doesn't exist.
Nothing really exists.
So even all these religious stories that we've been brought up with, they're actually just...
Depends on which ones you're talking about, because some of them I feel point quite directly to what we're talking about here.
I would say the teachings of Jesus Christ.
There's some stuff in the Bible that seems to point to this. There's a section, you know where the, what is it, where they eat the bread, you know,
Yeah.
the drink, or drink bread.
Yeah.
If you listen, if you read that, it's in John somewhere, if you
Yeah.
read what he's talking about, you totally get that Jesus is completely on fire with something he can't talk about.
Yeah, okay.
And he's saying, if you could just taste my flesh or taste my blood, you'd get what I'm saying. It can't be spoken of. It's very similar. There's other bits in there as well. I can't think
Yeah,
of any of them.
I've read it recently and it sounds pretty similar.
Some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was 800 at some point, 1800 and something, where one of the priests decided what books fit in and what don't. It was a political action to create the Bible, to consolidate it against another religion which was up and coming. I can't remember which one it was. And so they were trying to create a thing, a codex,
Yeah.
which would consolidate, you know, the people around them. It was a political action. So there was a lot of stuff that was in and out, you know. It was so it's, I think in some ways it's lost that inspiration, which you might find in the Gospel of Thomas, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That's very non-dual stuff in there.
So Jesus was okay then?
Who knows? Was there a Jesus?
There was another thing you said a while back about there was a guy, German or Austrian guy interviewing you, and he said you said to him, it's like, well, what you're talking about is like, I think he said, do you ever go back into the dream? And you said, it's like seeing Santa. It's like not you suddenly when you stop believing in Santa, there's never a time when you believe in Santa again. And I was just thinking, to use the analogy, do you still see Santa, but know that Santa is just, you know, in terms of.
I'm sorry, the analogy is just going to fall apart. It doesn't. It's just the profundity is the difference between the dream world and this appearance is more dramatic than losing Santa. It's more profound. It's more all-encompassing. So the individual believes that it has a home, that it has a life, that it has a partner, that it owns things, that it knows things. We're talking about, and that, you know, I talked about, you know, the worldly affairs. It thinks it knows all those things. And this is talking about the loss of all of that. That whole thing.
Kind of Santa on steroids.
What's that?
Like Santa on steroids kind of thing.
What's on steroids?
Santa Claus.
Oh, Santa Claus on steroids, yeah. We're talking about the simplicity of just simply this apparent happening, being everything. And that this apparent happening, apparent meaning it's real and unreal, or it is and isn't happening, is all encompassing. There is absolutely nothing outside of it. It's whole and complete.
Before there were, this is a weird question, but before there were animals, let's say there was a time in the universe when there were no animals, it was just planets and stars and all of that. Was there any appearance then, or is just appearance, and does appearance come about as a consequence of there being sentient beings for there to be an appearance for?
Yeah. That comes from the experience that I'm the center of the universe. And so if I'm not aware of it, it's probably not happening. And nothing has ever happened. But it apparently did. So we can talk about the beginning, the Big Bang, and all these other things, and non-sentient beings turning into amoebas, turning into fish, turning into this, and turning. We can talk about all that.
Yeah.
It's just not real. It's not other than what's happening. And what's happening is real and unreal. It's a paradox. See, for that, the question supposes something being real. There just isn't anything real. So it doesn't have that solidity to project itself into some real past.
Me would never.
There's nothing to hold on to.
Okay.
You can't even form the concept. Who would form the concept? It's just empty happening.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because isn't it that the sentient beings are just ideas anyway? Is it actually irrelevant, the beings?
Well, I mean, I think what we
now.
were talking about now is the experience of the individual feeling like it's real. And so the assumption that there's other things out there that are real. So if there's an individual in a body, it will see an individual in this body because it has to be that way. And so it tries to understand what's being suggested through imagining that as real. So it tries to impose that. You can't imagine what this is without it in it.
Yeah. And if there's no individual, then sentient beings is also irrelevant.
Well, nothing's we're back to nothing's relevant.
Yeah.
There's no relationship. There's only relationship if there's a knower or a perceiver. And that experience is an illusion. Because it says something is real, and that's me. And that experience is, and everything else is also real. There isn't anything real. Already.
So it's just always this.
Which is and isn't. So this, there's nothing to hit.
So it's the knowing that makes it real.
Actually, knowing is sort of an effect of the experience of inside, I am.
So it wouldn't matter if we were all asleep, really.
Nothing matters.
No.
We're not getting anywhere. This isn't about getting anywhere.
Yeah. But of course.
It won't help. Being awake won't help.
Gets over.
Being asleep won't help.
Being dead.
Doesn't help.
Right.
It's the end of the search, though.
Yeah.
But nobody was helped.
Yeah. Still, this body functions.
Yeah. There's just no help for the individual.
No hope.
No help, no hope.
And you said before that the individual is in itself the seeking energy.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So once the energy ceases, the individual ceases.
Well, it's the same thing. The individual ceases,
Yeah,
ceases,
sure.
seeking, ceases. Yeah.
I feel like I can be here. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly the experience of I, yeah.
What's the difference between that and what's going on over there?
Can't be said.
I mean, I feel I can do it, but then that's
Do
not
what?
it. That's not it, yeah.
Do what? We can do what? Oh, but you're talking about here being real.
I feel like
Then you know-
I can be here, I can do
Yes,
this.
exactly. That's now. That's being now. That's be here now. Yeah, exactly. And that presumes there's a real time. Something's real, and so now is real, and so I can be that real now.
So what's happening there? I know
Nothing.
there's not a there, but
Nothing. Nothing.
But in the
nothing
story-
seeing. Nothing speaking.
but in the story,
Nothing moving.
you were once here.
They never happened.
No. I know it's not. I know I'm talking rubbish, but
Well, it's not rubbish. We're just talking. It's fine.
yeah. Just like a silly question, but I know it's not true. But how come you get it and we can't get it? I know it's just. I know it's a
But you
crazy
actually
question.
think that this has gotten something.
Yeah.
That's coming from the experience that you're real and something's lost.
I know.
You're
I'm
not.
real,
Nothing's been
realise
lost. You don't know you're not real. No one knows they're not
that.
real.
Oh. I know this is a me. For me, it's frustrated.
Well, it's at the end of its rope.
Never get it. No.
This completely shows the limits of the individual. So it's stuck against a brick wall.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's so simple somehow.
Yeah, it's too simple to get,
Yeah.
and the individual wants to get it. And it's looking for what's happening.
It's so simple because there's yeah.
Jim, I think this suggestion of what you said earlier on, that this, as it is dramatically different to this as a subjective object reality for a person. But that, it gives rise to seeking. It's like when the me hears that, it's like, I want that dramatically different.
Mm.
Kind of like, it almost suggests a place or an experience or something that's going to be different.
Mm.
Do you think?
I hear where you're coming from.
When it's this.
Yeah.
I mean, like you see it in animals.
It's the same. I hear the same thing when I say that being at a meeting there can be a relaxation or a glimpse or something. Or it also sounds like a promise. It sounds like something could happen or something could change.
Mm-hmm.
Still, it happens. What do you do?
Latches on.
This describes the individual and how it has an effect, an apparent effect, and what it does. There is no individual. All right, now what?
So all you're pointing out really is the illusion of duality.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But when there's an individual, there's a real experience of duality.
Mm.
It really has the experience that I am here and everything is outside of me.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that there is somewhere to get.
Yeah.
There's always somewhere to get.
Mm.
So does experience go?
Yes. There's no experience.
And experience?
There's no experience. There's no subject
There has to be an
awareness.
experience for there
Yeah.
to be experience.
Yeah.
So is it like, I've heard people say that pure experience, experiencing, but no experience.
Doesn't ring true here.
No.
Sounds like somebody would have to know that.
And what you're saying is kind of unknowing.
Well, it's just not. That sounds a little bit special, and it's very ordinary. It's very simple. And that also sounds a bit special, but nobody knows that it's ordinary or simple.
Ordinary and simple unknowing. Just kind of.
Totally.
Yeah.
There's something very frightening about that word, unknown.
Yeah, that's true.
Because basically, I had a thing where I kind of, when I went to one of your meetings last year in the summer, June I think it was, kind of disappeared thing happened, and that's about as much as you can say. Really, just kind of, it's just unknowing, and you can't. I couldn't say, oh, I was there and then I wasn't at this point. I couldn't say it just kind of, I disappeared or anything like that. It just kind of wasn't there anymore. I couldn't pinpoint a particular moment at which that happened.
Yeah.
It was just unknowing. That was it.
Yeah. That's this.
And I kind of feel that I want to tell you that so you can say, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You're nearly not there.
That's the kind of the subtlety of that kind of seeking energy. You know, you want some kind of flag or like special badge or something. Do you see what I mean?
No,
to feel better,
the seeker does,
you know?
yeah.
The seeking energy does, yeah.
Well, it turns that apparent happening into a past thing that it knows about. It's not the past. It's this.
Bullshit. That thing.
No. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry.
It's this.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. This is no one. And you have no idea what that was. And you don't remember it.
Why don't I remember it?
Because the memory of it isn't the reality of it. This is the reality of it.
So, but I sense it happens throughout the day. Like when you're engrossed in a book or a film or something.
Yeah, why not?
You feel like you're not there. Weird.
So Jim, this is unknowing.
There is only unknown, absolutely. Appearing as an individual that thinks it knows.
I think I've heard it said that when this sort of doesn't change anything, you don't suddenly become, your personality doesn't really change just because of this kind of unknowing. But that just seems odd to me, that if whatever drops out, surely that, cares that used to be really important to the individual must evaporate.
Probably depend upon how contracted the personality is as to what would change.
Right.
But it's not really what we're talking about, because it doesn't really matter.
No, it's not. I'm not saying this is about personal development.
No.
It's just that it would be weird if nothing changed.
Yeah. Well, nothing does change.
Well, there's no change in behaviour from before whatever happened and what didn't happen. There's no change. You're not more chilled out. You're just as stressed as.
Well, it is a little strange. Taxis always seem to show up when they're needed. I always get a seat at a restaurant where everybody else shows up. It's sort of, no, I'm just making I mean, when the tension in the body drops away, it's a total surprise. It's a shock. How much tension was in the body, where it was, how pervasive, how integral to the experience. It's a bit of a shock. So that seems to fall away.
So that tension in the body must be connected to that thing.
It's a feedback loop.
Yeah.
Totally. And there's a lot of that tension holds on to certain neurotic things. Neurosis is when the certain experiences in the past is a story. The certain experiences in the past are too much for the individual. It will push them away, and that creates sort of a neurotic sort of thing going on. And that affects the apparent functioning of the individual. That sort of loosens up, because there's nobody left that really cares about it. Thinking, we heard that today, that thinking seems to be a real problem for the emotions seem to be a real problem. And when there's no one left, there's no one that really cares about what's thought or felt. It's just what apparently happens. But there's no one left that cares. So no one gets that. No one gets that there's less neurosis. There's no one that gets a relaxed body. There's no one that gets not caring about. It's not like there's someone there that no longer cares. There's just no one left to care. In that sense. It's not some callousness that arises, but there's no that sort of caring.
The problem that the individual has with thoughts and feelings, is that because it doesn't accept them?
No, it's because it experiences them as real. It takes ownership to them and feels like that's something it needs to take responsibility for. It's on a journey to find something. And so it's sifting through everything to find the solution to why. So it matters. Everything matters. To the end, exactly. That's all the individual can do. That's all it can do. That's all it does.
That's why probably watching television or reading a book gives it a little break from all of that suffering.
That's a good symbol for caring, because the individual thinks it's this, but it's not. This.
Need.
Yeah.
Jim, I sometimes hear people implying that with the end of the meat, everything can fall away, like the need to work, but it doesn't need to be like
Well, who would know?
Yeah.
No, nothing needs to happen.
I mean, it can be like that.
It can be like anything.
Yeah.
That's the scary bit for me. Because it wants to control. It feels like it has control. Yeah. It already doesn't. Don't tell it that
The message has changed?
No, absolutely not.
Not really changed.
It's deepened.
Deepened. Yes.
Oh, definitely.
And also then...
But it doesn't change.
No, okay, deepened. And...
It's bigger, in a way.
Yeah. And the me's who come to listen, they're different too.
I don't know about that.
Well, I just think, you see, energy is kind of balance.
There's more people.
Because I wouldn't go to that many meetings, but because I live in Ireland, but you know, I just think that any meetings that I've gone to recently, they're different. I mean, the questions are different, you know, that people ask and that. You know, I don't know really what I'm saying, but not really different. Maybe it's deepened, yeah. That makes sense.
actually the deepening thing is actually amazing in a way. At the beginning, something would seemingly happen, and I'd go run to Rita, and I'd tell her, hey, everything's different. And she'd say, well, that's exactly what you said before. It's all the same. The words are all the same. So it doesn't change.
No, I don't mean the message changes, but not the message changes. So maybe it's the delivery changes.
Maybe. Yeah, probably. I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
In what way would you say it deepened? Can you explain that? Is that difficult?
Boy, I just did an interview and I got really lost trying to explain it. I don't know. Less awareness. I don't know what to say about it actually. It gets bigger, more profound. And at the same time nothing changes.
What gets bigger?
Yeah, I know. I'm lost. Can't tell you.
Less awareness.
I remember trying to tell it to Tony, and I explained it as there's a picture, and then it all seems integrated, and then bits fall off the picture, and it's a clearer picture. And then he said something, I was like, well, that's much better explained, but I've forgotten what he said. He's like that.
That's a good explanation, rather than bits falling off.
Yeah.
That's clear.
Yeah, it's clear. But it seems, it's like the whole thing gets thinner. So the whole appearance just has less and less substance to it, less and less depth to it.
You mean energetically?
We're not going to get anywhere there. You can call it energetic. Yeah, let's call it energetic.
You mean you see that?
Hey, we're not going to. It's not. It's as easy to describe as when there wasn't anybody there.
Wow. It was just wow.
Yeah, that's about what it's like.
Well, what I can understand, this message is pretty simple.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
it is and it isn't.
Okay, it is. Isn't the individual actually making this message so complicated so it doesn't have to die?
Well, it'll do anything not to die. Absolutely.
So
And if complicating it, misunderstanding it is a good one. Yeah.
Okay. But the message is actually
It's
really
very.
simple.
It's very. All that's being said is there is only what is and isn't.
I'm done.
For the individual, would it be more accurate to feel free or to feel dead already? If nothing's
This message isn't for the individual. The suggestion is there isn't one. So whatever it experiences or does makes absolutely no difference. It's not already.
Jim, when you said there's only what is and isn't, is that pointing to real and unreal?
Absolutely, same thing, yeah.